Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Weekly Notice with Andy Ngo. We are now on episode 21. Today is the 18th of August, 2022. Um, First, as always, please leave your questions and comments throughout the live stream. I will get to it. I want to try out some new things in my live stream with you. Most of the time, it's been me talking in front of the camera on a very simple production, if you will. I have had a guest on before. You may remember that in June, Libby Emmons, who is the editor in chief of the Post Millennial, was appeared in person with me, and I want to do more stuff like that. I think um, you know, part of this experience should probably evolve to include interviews and things like that. So today I had earlier interviewed Mia Cathell, who used to be a colleague with me at the Post Millennial. She is now a investigative reporter at Town Hall. She and I did most of the Portland 2020 riot coverage together. She was really great, and I'm so glad that I got to interview her. And I want to introduce her to this audience because some of you may not have heard of her. But if you've read some of my reporting, particularly about those who were arrested and then let go over and over and over, well, Mia worked with me on those. So yep, I'm gonna play the video interview. Mia, I am so thankful that you are the very first person that I'd from my live stream. I thought of you because for those who follow my work will remember your name because we co-wrote so many stories together back when you were a colleague of mine at the Post Millennial. Now you're a investigative reporter at Town Hall. You've continued to do really, really great work. And I wanted to invite you on because of your series of reports that have come out about a really shocking and ongoing story about a 10-year-old Latina girl in Ohio whose mother took her to a different state for an abortion. The original report that came out in the local media was on the 1st of July by the Indianapolis Star. And I remember at the time the details were really scant. It ignited off a fear on the left because all that people could think about was that a 10-year-old was raped and the mother of abortion in Ohio, allegedly, that's what they claim, so I had to cross state lines and get an abortion. And this whole thing was tied up into the Roe v. Wade fury and rage that continues to this day. But yeah, let's start off with misconceptions about the story because it went all the way up to the White House. Every journalist, liberal establishment was opining and using the story to try to discredit the pro-life movement. But there's obviously, as with every complicated story, there's a lot of nuance. So what happened? What do we know?
So you saw there was this whole firestorm that erupted after this Indy Star report came out beginning of July because it was a single source story. The abortion doctor, who is the primary source in it, she's an abortion activist, a Planned Parenthood advocate. So a lot of journalists on the right raised very important questions, poked holes in this case, and then all of that culminated finally with of 27-year-old Gershon Fuentes. Came out that he is an illegal alien. And so that erupted yet another firestorm. He was arrested mid-July, and a lot of the people who promoted this case at first as a talking point for abortion. They kind of used it as a gotcha moment for those who doubted it. But if anything, all of this pressure perhaps led to the arrest of the culprit. And so now I'm still tracking this case, even though it seems like it's been buried since his illegal immigration status came out. And now we're going to see it be prosecuted in Franklin County. It's been moved from municipal court, and then now he's been held without bond, which is typically rare. But the judge at his arraignment hearing, at his bond hearing, it was very powerful and moving to see her outraged about it, because I felt like a lot of the adults in this case haven't been showing emotion. It seems a bit desensitized because they see this often, but because it's a national hot point for abortion, that's why it's being discussed. And the judge even mentioned that it went to the extent of Biden using it as a political point in the fallout of Roe.
So, can you help clear up the misconception? Is there any accuracy to the claim that the reason the mother took the pregnant child across state lines was because abortion was illegal in Ohio? That was a claim.
Well, they claim that Ohio doesn't have an exception for rape. It doesn't, but it has an exception when the mother's life is in danger. And so a lot who kind of piled on that talking point said that a 12-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old is able to carry a baby term, and they will point to some kind of obscure case that happened outside the United States, but the child underwent like a C-section for it to be a successful pregnancy carried to birth. But I believe even the Attorney General might have said that that the abortion could have happened here because the mother's life, with a lot of these trigger laws we saw happened after the Dobbs decision came out, that the mother's life is a priority and that the state values the mother's life throughout this.
So, in your reporting for Town Hall, you were one of the very first people to report on the booking photo of the suspect. I'm going to pull that up. And he is a illegal foreign national. What I remember, like every development in the stories seemed to be, it is quite shocking in that when the mother of the girl was interviewed in Spanish language media, she appeared to be quite defensive of the suspect. You since found out that through your great investigative skills that this child rape suspect was in a romantic relationship with the girl's mother, right?
Right. So the girl's mother, Lourdes Gomez, she had an off-camera interview with Telemundo. She wouldn't show her face, but she publicly defended Fuentes, and a neighbor in the community corroborated that they were in a domestic partnership together. They were living together. And then it was further proven that they were, based on this eviction case, that the property owner who's taking them to court found that they were participating in criminal activity, rape of a child on their property, on their premises. And how I found the mother, she commented on a lot of Gershon Fuentes' posts on Instagram, on TikTok, things like "I love you, baby," heart emojis, and then her profile picture on Facebook is the one that's in the feature photo there, where they're taking a smiling selfie. And then once a lot of these facts came to light, she scrubbed her Facebook. She changed it to a bunch of avatars, and so that's how I followed the digital trail here.
And as far as you know, is the child rape victim still in the custody of this woman, her mother?
The state won't give any answers. I've asked Children's Services, I've asked the prosecuting attorney, I asked the sheriff's office, I know Megan Fox at PJ Media, who's also been following this along, has reached out, and they'll use, the child protection laws. They're valuing the privacy of the child, but I believe the citizens deserve to know if this child's safe. And she's one of what's believed to be many children in the household.
You said that there's an upcoming court date related to an eviction for the child's mother.
Right.
Yeah.
It's next Tuesday, and Megan Fox did a follow-up report for PJ Media, and she reached out to the legal counsel of the property owner, who said that on the rental agreement, no children were listed on it, and she found the lawyer representing Gomez, who's actually a prestigious private attorney. She's a partner at Ice Miller, and then she used to work while she was at this other place. She was the defense attorney for Planned Parenthood. That's something that PJ Media found, and given that this was supposed to be making the case for abortion in an extreme exception, and that's something that raises eyebrows. Plus, Gershon Fuentes is also represented himself by a law firm that's well known to the Ohio area. And if he's supposedly an illegal alien who's working at a cafe, how do they have such deep pockets for two private, prestigious law firms? And as far as I know, I don't think they do public defense work.
So you've come under a lot of attacks for your reporting. I'm just pulling up your Twitter here, by the way. Nia Cathell. Please follow her on. Am I pronouncing your name right? Cathell, or is it Cathell?
It's Cathell. You got it right.
Cathell. Nia Cathell. Follow on Twitter, please, if you don't already. I saw that the far left people and many just on the mainstream left were really vicious in their attacks on you personally for your reporting on the story. Why do you think they felt so threatened by you helping to illuminate more details about this horrific incident that is ongoing still?
It is sad that this case has been used as an argument both for the left and the right, because it is this child who's caught in the crossfire. She really does deserve the privacy to heal in peace, but it's been kind of tossed around like a football. First, it was a case for the left, and then once they found out the illegal immigration status, and it brings us back to the border crisis, and how I believe Columbus is a sanctuary city. And I was surprised when a lot of people from there told me that there are a lot of illegal aliens who find work there. It's easy to fly under the radar there. And so it seems that Gershon Fuentes found a sanctuary there. And so his arrest really kind of drives a wedge in that kind of narrative that they were building. And so a lot of other people criticize me for unmasking them. But if she truly is complicit, which she's already defending her daughter's alleged rapist, and she's also reportedly pregnant with his baby, and he's her baby daddy, then a child sexual abuser, child abuser who's complicit in this deserves to be unmasked. And this is all about seeking justice for that little girl. And it seems like it could have been a case that flew under the radar. It makes you wonder if there were pro-abortion advocates that pushed this mother to haul this child at state lines to further that trauma, because it didn't seem like a necessary thing other than to make the child a poster child for the pro-abortion movement.
You and I both have come under sustained attacks for our journalism. My own experience is that the journalistic organizations and unions that I'm a paying member of, like the SPLJ, or even and other ones as well, have done nothing to stand up for our First Amendment activities in our reporting, even when I've reached out directly. And for example, I've informed them about criminal threats on my life. And that silence is deafening, obviously. Uh, I've seen you threaten a lot and accused of things like, I mean, people just said because of you reporting, they said you were doxing, which is, I mean, that's not what doxing is. I wonder if you have had any um, support from journalists or media organizations.
I would say there's been a few just people in the comments on Twitter and the replies who aren't journalists just thanking me for following this case or keeping us updated, because it really is just kind of fallen by the wayside, because it's no longer, politically expedient for the narrative. I've seen any journalists reach out to me thanking me other than other places like Megan Fox, J Media, Jorge, who's he was the one who translated that Telemundo interview. We've messaged a bit. I asked him to help me translate one of the follow-up interviews, and he's done a really great job of raising questions about this case following it, since this is something that, hits his demographic, his community as well.
Which Jorge?
I believe Jorge Bonilla. I might not be pronouncing his last name right. He's MRC Latino.
He does great
that's
work as well.
Yeah.
Well, Mia, thank you so much for giving your time for this interview. I think those who are either independent journalists or journalists who are working in independent media like Town Hall, they deserve much more attention. And how can, beyond Twitter, are there other places where people could better follow your work?
I'm trying to get back onto Getter. I'm waiting for Truth Social to come to Android. I'm not sure if it's there yet. I was planning on downloading it. Maybe I'll finally go to the web version. Parler a bit, but since the whole kind of technological collapse of it, I haven't really been. I'm just primarily on Twitter.
Yeah, and one thing I want to say before we sign off is just that, I'm often criticized kindly by my fans and supporters that I'm really boring in interviews, and between you and I, speaking from journalist, writer to writer, people like you and I, we are primarily writing behind screens, and we're not entertainers on television. We're not the personalities, but I think the value of our work through our writing, and you do really great work. And the time that we had together at the Post Millennial, that was truly an honor to work with you, to see your growth, and I'm so excited to see how you've gone on to do and continue to do really amazing stuff, and you still pursue the stories and subjects that are going to put you under a lot of personal attacks, and you're resilient, and I really admire that, because I think a lot of the journalists that get featured in the establishment journalist organizations, the ones that get a lot of recognition, you take a look at their work and you look at their personalities that is reflected on social media, and you see they don't hold up anything to people like you and to people like others that you've named, who are on the ground or out there doing the hard work, and is unfortunately quite mistreated by the public. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to reading more of your reporting.
Thanks so much for all your support, Andy. I really loved our time at the Post Millennial together. You taught me so much about investigative journalism, how the court system works. I know a lot of other fellow reporters who might struggle to know when a case has been transferred to go to the sheriff's office for mugshots. So it's really exciting work right now to see that there's just a digital footprint out there for anyone. Everyone seems to have a social media history today, and a lot of like the BLM Antifa activists, they're live tweeting, they're rioting, or you can find them on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok now. And so it seems so easy to track their militancy. None of them put their accounts on private because they think there are many celebrities, I guess, in their own sphere of influence. So I really do love this work. It's fun piecing together the story, seeing the bigger picture of who someone is, what led them down this road for far left ideology, and so yeah, I do wish that a lot of on the ground journalists, whether they're risking their safety reporting on far left riots, or those who are just doing the dirty work, doing the heavy lifting. There's a lot of citizen journalists out there who are just asking offices the right questions, sending public requests after FOIA requests, and trying to find the answers when there's so many establishment outlets who can run a full story on one source, on one anonymous expert, and no one's supposed to ask who exactly is this expert. And that seems to have happened with a lot of viral stories that receive criticism, like that Rolling Stone story with ivermectin. It just became a game of telephone, and it's just based on some obscure source out there. While a lot of anti-establishment outlets, they're so well sourced, well fact checked, and they just deserve a lot more praise for the work that they're doing.
Yeah, I love this discussion of like what it means to be a journalist, the type of work that's involved, and you know, we hear among conservative journalists all the usual media critiques because commentators talk about that all the time. This work is I mean, it's not really glamorous. It's the slog of going through all the things you just mentioned, all these correspondence back and forth, trying to figure out the patchwork of even who to contact. The United States is, from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, the whole public records process and acquiring that information changes. And even within the state, just a different county, and you have to learn the system for every place that you report on. It makes it really challenging. Most of the time it's really boring, and often you hit a brick wall, or you hit a wall where they're demanding a lot of money for research these records that you're requesting. It's not glamorous stuff, and so that's why, again, my experience of working with you, the work you do now, it's like, we just thank you for that. And so I look forward to continuing to highlight your reporting on my live stream and of course on my social media. Thanks, Mia.
Thanks so much, Andy.
That was my wonderful interview with Mia Cathell. Please follow her on Twitter if you aren't already. Again, her investigative reporting is at Town Hall. So, shifting gears a little bit. By the way, for those who missed the beginning, leave your questions and comments to it. I will get it towards the latter segment of the show. Did you hear about what happened in Washington State at a YMCA? So, on the 26th of July, there was an elderly woman who was permanently banned from the YMCA after she demanded that a male bodied person leave the woman's changing room, the locker room. She also made allegations that this individual was watching little girls use the toilet. This was reporting at that time in the Daily Mail. Elderly woman, 80, who has attended YMCA pool for 35 years, is banned after demanding transgender worker leave women's locker room, accusing them of watching little girls pulling down their suits. This is the elderly woman there with the sign. So this piece here is from the Daily Mail, but Post Millennial, the publication I'm associated with, was the first to break the story. And for those, maybe who haven't been to a YMCA, it's essentially it's well known for being an athletic center. It's a community space where you can rent rooms as well. It's the people who go there can qualify for free membership if they're low income or in poverty. But even the full price rates are very affordable. So in American society, they've played an important role in being like a community space um, for people in cities. And this woman here, her name is Julie Janin, voiced her opposition to a person with the penis in the women's locker room, and when she was banned for life. So this happened in Port Townsend, Washington State. Port Townsend is pretty close to Seattle. Um, you follow my work, you know the politics of the Pacific Northwest. It is so uh, militantly left-wing places in the United States. I would argue on the entire continent. So I know a lot of people were shocked that this elderly woman was banned for life. I'm not. One of the sacred tenets of left wing political ideology today in the Anglosphere West is the trans issue. And in the US, I think the debate was crushed and prevented from happening. We never really had a time to discuss, okay, where are the lines of respecting and protecting the rights of people who identify as transgender or transsexual? How do you protect women's sports, women's spaces? This conversation was never had. And what we deal with now is um, basically a decree from government institutions as well as cultural institutions that the new rules is you cannot question or disagree at all with this, otherwise you will be crushed. Um, in the UK, on the other hand, things are a little bit different. You may have seen that the J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series and many other books, has been one of the most vocal um, activists, if you will, regarding protecting women's spaces and in the legal definition of women. So in the UK, um, discussions around trans and women's rights is still very much ongoing and has not been finished, in my view, as it has in the US. And what happened here in Townsend is the logical conclusion of where we've been going anyways in the US. The case has a lot of echoes of what happened at the Wee Spa, what is alleged to have happened at the Wee Spa in the summer of last year. So flashback, there was a viral video, a Black woman, she posted it on Instagram, of herself complaining to the front desk of a spa in Los Angeles that a person with a penis was in the women's section, and the staff at the Wee Spa said basically there's nothing we can do. This is the law, which I mean that statement is true. It's also true in Washington State, really. Even if the staff, let's say, were sympathetic to this elderly woman, there's nothing they could do. These are places of your gender or your sex is how you identify, and so and so-called anti-discrimination laws are written on the books. So there's nothing legally to prevent somebody with a male body from going into a women's section. That person wants to use that space. Anyways, so the We Spa thing led to women's right protests or right-wing protests outside that became a riot because Antifa came to attack them. There were 2 riots outside the We Spa. The left reported at the time that this whole thing was a big hoax, that it never happened, that the woman who made the video faked it all. And this was repeated by the establishment liberal press. Well, I was the one to break the story that it wasn't a hoax. Police were investigating it. And in fact, there was a convicted sex offender who is a suspect in the case and was charged with 5 felonies over this ongoing case. I interviewed that person, that suspect, Darren Mariga, on the New York Post. I did 2 pieces for it late last year. And as far as I know, this person is still on the run, is a fugitive, and that criminal case is still ongoing, by the way. So this YMCA thing kind of had echoes of that, and in more ways than one. So there was that elderly woman, Julie. She and her supporters organized like a protest event where she was giving a speech to protest against how she's been mistreated by the athletic center and also the city, and how the left responded was, well, uh, the mainstream left and Antifa organized a direct action against the event. So, yeah, this is my tweet. Antifa and far left militants are currently protesting against an 80-year-old woman in Port Townsend, Washington. So this on the 15th of August, it was Monday. This Antifa account school board block put out a direct action about where to go. It was outside the city council meeting in Port Townsend. They called the people there TERFs. TERFs is an acronym, TERFS. A TERF stands for trans exclusionary radical feminist. And it's a term of derision. It's meant to be a slur against feminists who are not supportive of radical critical gender ideology. So that's the slur they use against these women. So a whole bunch of people showed up. Some were in black bloc, and they were. Here's a picture of it. Pull it up. Some people in black bloc. They were screaming at the woman. They were screaming, "Trans women are women," and all these other cliches that they always say. And they were there to try to shut down the speaker. And well, unfortunately, what happened at one point is that they ran. One of the militant far left protesters ran up. This is the elderly woman speaking, by the way, and stole some of the flags. I'm just gonna play a clip of it. You can see. So this is Monday.
Old lady in the women's shower room, and what I saw that day. Wendy Bart, CEO of the YMCA, told me pride posters are adequate to let people know, women know, what to expect. In the shower room, known for 60 years as a female only, one will now encounter men who identify as women undressing and showering with female humans. I object. I don't want to be forced to the shower and dress with the opposite sex present. I know.
So there's a huge crowd surrounding those women and trying to intimidate them.
We're here to help keep everybody in order. Where's the police department?
She's asking, where's the police department?
Are we getting up here?
Yeah, you see that? The person ran in the back and stole the stuff. She's asking, can someone get the police? So, unfortunately, this is the MO of the far left, to shut down freedom of expression. And they use physical force, they use intimidation, they use doxing, they use harassment. It doesn't matter if you're somebody like me who's gay and a person of color. It doesn't matter if you're an 80-year-old woman who objected to a male-bodied person in the women's locker room. It doesn't matter. They will. The point is to prevent you from speaking and thinking by any means necessary. Okay, that is the MO of the far left. And I'll talk about the mayor in a little bit. By the way, so this is pictures of the person who she saw in the locker room. By the way, person's name is Christian Adams. The person now goes by Clementine. These are pictures from Christian's graduation just last year from high school. It's a young individual. This whole thing has been a big financial success for this individual because there's a GoFundMe campaign, and leftists have poured in thousands for this individual. Christian Adams says she's seeking cosmetic surgery, gender reaffirming surgery, they call it. So, yeah, lots of money has been raised on the GoFundMe. So, that old woman is banned from the swimming pool. This person who, according to what the far left say, is the victim in this case. I mean, she's coming out financially well off as a result. And I want to bring a little bit of attention to the mayor. This is the mayor of Port Townsend, by the way, the town where this whole thing happened. His name is David Faber. This is his Twitter account. This is a photo of him in front of a toilet. His Twitter is his social media is just weird. And he released a statement expressing support for the far left extremists and Antifa who came out. There's some pro Antifa stuff on his Twitter as well. So he wrote, this was after that attempt to shut down that elderly woman's event. What an incredible night. The Port Townsend community showed up in huge and beautiful fashion to say that hate has no place here. Trans and cis allies alike spoke love and support, and the only turf speaker was from out of town. Tonight reminded me why Port Townsend is home. This individual he hates these women activists. He's written previously derisively about turfs. And the politics of the mayor of this town is not particularly surprising. What is weird are some of these other posts that I looked into and others I brought attention to. Pee Wee did nothing wrong. Pee Wee Herman was that children's entertainer who there was a big sex-related scandal of him being arrested for masturbating in a theater. This is how the mayor weighed in. The mayor wrote, having sex with a dog to make a yam you're happy with. I don't know the context. I looked up the thread. I don't know if this is a joke or what, but he said it. Here's another thing related to having sex with animals. So he wrote, I mean, if it's alive, it's morally wrong. If it's dead, then the act of effing the chicken isn't morally wrong. And then he goes on and on about eating meat. I mean, this was just written last month. So these aren't like super old tweets from the mayor. Yeah, so that's the mayor of Port Townsend who sided with the far left extremists who were intimidating the 80-year-old woman. Okay. Another big incident that happened that I just have to talk about is the assassination attempt on the author Salman Rushdie. So this happened on the 12th of August in Western New York. Salman Rushdie is a British American Indian writer, very well known, has a number of best-selling novels for decades now. So he writes fiction stories, very long books. His style he includes a lot of surrealist elements in his novels. But in the 80s, I'm going to pull up the cover of the book. One moment. Okay. So in 1988, Salman Rushdie wrote this book, or was published, I should say, The Satanic Verses. And it's a fictional story about two East Indians who are living in contemporary England. That's very similar to his background. He was born in India, but grew up in England. And in it, there's one small part of the book where there's a dream sequence where there's a narration about Muhammad's life, Muhammad referring to Islam's prophet. And this segment, the small part of the book, was deemed to be heretical and blasphemous by Muslims all around the world. Let's see. And here we go. So this is a photograph in, I believe this is Bradford, England, which is in the north of England. Thousands of Muslims came out to demand that Salman Rushdie be killed. They did a big book burning event, and this was in 1989, I believe. So this is like way before Charlie Hebdo, way before 9/11, and it was the 80s. And even at that time, you had this issue of um, Muslim intolerance to freedom of expression. And in 1989, the Ayatollah of Iran, the then Ayatollah, Supreme Leader Khomeini, he issued a Islamic decree, a fatwa, that Salman Rushdie must die, and that because of his sins against Islam, because of his blasphemy against their religion, and Iran offered a multi-million-dollar reward that's still standing, by the way. And Salman Rushdie went into hiding for about a decade, by the way. And I mean, since the late 80s, he's lived under death threats, like serious, credible death threats by violent extremist Muslims. And there are those who were he those who were associated with the book in some way were also targeted. One of them was, let me pull up. This man's name is Hitoshi Igarashi. He was the Japanese translator for Satanic Verses, and he was stabbed to death in 1991 in Japan. The accomplices have never been identified to this day. The Italian translator was stabbed multiple times in attack. He survived that one, though. In 1993, the Norwegian publisher of the Satanic Verses was shot 3 times in assassination attempt, and survived that one. So Salman Rushdie has said this today. Others have pointed out you could not have a book like the Satanic Verses being released today. No publisher would touch, even if the editors and all that were completely supportive of the book, even if there was huge financial potential, the implications of the dangers to the writers, the editors, the translators, anybody associated with the book. And over the years we've seen over and over how segments of the Muslim population around the world, doesn't matter if they're in the West or if they're in a Muslim majority country, have responded with violent intolerance to what they perceive as blasphemy against their religion. uh, in 2015, France has really, well, no, even before 2015. Um, I mean, one of the big cases was the Danish cartoons that were mocking of Islam and mocking of Muhammad. I forget what year that was, 2005 or four. I mean, that led to like deadly protests and multiple, assassination attempts and all that, violent attacks. Um, in 2015, the Charlie Hebdo, which was a leftist satirical newspaper, has cartoons in it. Their whole office was shot up, and I believe 12 people with the publication were murdered. Um, a police officer was murdered. It led to a huge manhunt. So yeah, Salman Rushdie fortunately has survived this assassination attempt on his life. Um, he's still in hospital, but he's lucky, and the um, uh, suspect was apprehended at the scene, by the way. And I looked a little bit into his background immediately. There's already a lot of information known now, but uh, the first thing I did was look at his social media and try to find photos that were confirmed to be him. So this is what I posted pretty soon after the attack was known. So this is suspect. His name is Hadi Matar. Um, he is from Fairview, New Jersey, and he was born in the United States from a family background that is Shia Muslim from Lebanon. This is him at the scene. On his social media, which has been deleted, by the way, but if you go on my Twitter, there's an archive link. This was his Facebook page. So he had this idolation of the Iranian regime, from those the supreme religious leader to those who were leading the Islamic Revolutionary Corps here. So, I mean, yeah, and Iran is the country that issued that fatwa, which is still ongoing. And on social media, there were a whole bunch of Muslims celebrating this attack. Most of them were of Pakistani background. Salman Rushdie stabbed on the neck. He was very controversial since 3 decades. He not only abused Holy Prophet and his family, but hurted the feelings of nearly 2 billion Muslims. These kind of controversial people are self-responsible for the violence committed against them. Here, there's an Islamic praise to God, well-deserved treatment. The next is Geert Wilders. Geert Wilders is a member of parliament in Holland who is very critical of Islam. There's been a number of attempts on his life. Stay tuned, you are next. So this tweet was in Urdu, and the translation is hashtag hero, Mujahid who stabbed Salman Rushdie. Mujahid is the Islamic term for an Islamic martyr. So yeah, the suspect, Hadi Matar, did do an interview in the New York Post. I believe that was published today. If you take a look at it, he was interviewed from jail. He's pleaded not guilty, and he talks a lot about his religion. And well, none of it's really surprising. Most of you probably didn't hear me until in the last couple of years because of my reporting on Antifa. But in the past, one of the beats I wrote about was I wrote about multiculturalism, immigration, Islam, and this is one of my past pieces that was published in the opinion section of the Wall Street Journal. It was called A Visit to Islamic England. I took this photograph. This piece was extremely controversial at the time. I still stand by it. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people who, I mean, I had people in my life who disavowed me after this came out, and you know, one of the other pillars of leftist religion is multiculturalism and immigration. You cannot be critical of it in any way. You can only talk of it in glorious terms. You can never even suggest restrictions or ending mass migration or anything like that, or bringing up conflicts that develop and parallel societies. This piece was particularly about parallel societies that have developed in England. You know, and I was talking very specifically about a particular part of England, but you can go anywhere across Europe that has been transformed by decades of mass migration, and you can see there are entire communities where they have a different set of ethos and values, and depending on where you are, even different laws in a way, because like in the UK, for example, there are Sharia courts, which are arbitration courts where people are supposed to go there voluntarily. There's been a lot of research on this. A lot of women feel pressure to go into it, and they are subjected to judgments that are violate their protections and rights, actually. So, anyways, I used to write about that stuff. It made me very unpopular then, as you can imagine, and I got a voicemail that I'm gonna play because it alludes to, well, it's related to all the hatred that I've had because of my past writings on the subject. So here, I'm gonna pull up the tweet. Content warning, there's swearing in this, okay? So this is a voicemail that was left for me.
Hey, Andy, I know that you want to just be like a fash piece of shit with like Patriot Prayer, hanging out with them while they plan assaults on people and stuff, spreading just like wild right-wing propaganda. But I want you to remember your Islamophobia. I do not want anyone to ever forget that. Fuck you for that. Fuck you for everything else that you've done. But fuck you for your fucking roots in Islamophobia, you piece of shit. You can fuck off. You can eat shit. You miserable piece of fuck. I know you're unhappy. There's a little piece of me that like is okay with that, but I really wish you would just fuck off and leave everyone alone. Because we don't need people spreading hate. You are spreading hate. You are putting people in danger every single day. Stop doing what you're doing. The minimum amount of money that you're doing, you could get a job at a fucking restaurant. You could be a prep cook and make the money you're fucking making without putting people in danger. You piece of fucking shit. Fuck off.
Yeah. Okay. Portland. I'm just gonna play you this video because this is an ongoing police investigation in Portland that needs the public's help in identifying some of the criminal suspects. There's a home in Southeast Portland with an elderly couple. I believe they are Asian. This video has been released of two people who are masked, dressed in black, dumping what looks to be gasoline all over the property. Fortunately, the property was not successfully set on fire. I don't know if there was any burning at all, but I mean, the video is disturbing. So So there's been no arrests in this, and if you have any information about who these suspects might be, please contact the Portland police. Okay. All right, I'm going to get to the questions and comments. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Okay. Um, so this person kept asking this question. I'm gonna try my best to answer. Roya, I'd like to know, if possible, if there's a percentage of Antifa that are orphans, adopted, or sponsored. Unfortunately, I don't have that information. We don't. You can't just say with any segment of society, of any political movement, what's their what's the status of their background. Were they born to natural, were they raised in a two-parent home? Were they foster children? We don't know that. And that information, is not readily part of the public records, unfortunately. So I don't mean to like dismiss the question, but my point is, obviously there's a lot that we can learn the more we know about sort of the general profile of those who are involved or accused of being involved in these violent far left direct actions. I will say what I do know based on the data sets that I've been able to gather based on the arrest records and the mugshots and booking photos. You're looking at a movement that of those who are involved ranging in age from about 15 to 35. And then beyond that, the age drops off a lot. You're not seeing rioters who are 50 and 60 years old, although there are a couple of exceptions with some older people being involved, but that's uncommon. The majority are white. Disproportionately, a lot of them are trans identifying in some way. I'm talking like 15 to 20%, which is much, much higher than what we know to be of the trans identifying population of everybody in the United States. Okay. Let's see. Username the Trump card asks, are you concerned the DOJ would treat you like MAGA? The criminal code in the United States is so vast and expansive that any of us can be prosecuted for any number of things. And so, if they choose to just make you a target, they can make your life hell. You don't even have to be even prosecuted, actually. They can make your life hell by just making you the subject of a criminal investigation. As a journalist, I look at what happened and is happening to Project Veritas, for example. James O'Keefe and others were subject to humiliating, abusive raids by federal authorities at their home and confiscation of their property. Once upon a time, I would have thought, oh, stuff like that doesn't happen in America. Journalists aren't targeted that way. Well, if you go against, if you somehow viewed as an enemy of these agencies or the enemy possibly of the current administration, they'll make your life hell. So, am I afraid that it could happen to me? I'm not afraid, but my confidence in American rule of law has ebbed quite a bit, actually. I think I had a confidence in it before that was probably due to just being naive. And yeah, I think the amount of corruption that is tolerated in American politics in Congress is unacceptable and really un-American. But it's there, and yeah, and a lot of people are being victimized because of it. Okay. Do the comments. Johnny Bravo wrote, "Don't you back down one bit." God bless you both. I think he's referring to Mia and I. I know the heat the left brings, and it's horrible. Thank you for your kind comment. Someone wrote, I can tell this reporting is hard on Mia. Mia has come under relentless attacks for her trying to shed some more light on that abortion case out of Ohio involving that child. I mean, I've seen it myself, and I mean that's what they do. They try to grind their targets to the ground, where if they can't kill you, they can't get you kicked off, they'll make you gaslight yourself into misery and depression. That's what they do. Okay. Oh, Mia, by the way, was watching. She wrote, thank you so much for your support, Andy, and thanks everyone for the kind words. Okay. Going through here. One other person wrote in response to the incident out of the YMCA, that's not a trans woman if it has a penis. That's cross-dressing, having been sexually assaulted. It's disgusting to me that I can't have a safe space. Well, first, I'm sorry that you've had that experience in the past. I mean, a lot of the women who are speaking up in many countries, by the way, about again pushing back against the radical trans ideology, they talk particularly about how having people letting people with penises into spaces where women are particularly vulnerable or in states of undress puts them at risk. I think that argument should be heard. I think heard fairly, and the evidence should be looked at. And also, just because a lot of these social changes that have happened from the top down regarding gender ID, I mean, it wasn't. Did they get an approval from the public, from the majority? I don't know. You know, and then some would argue, well, you shouldn't be put up to majority because this is about protecting rights. Trans people have rights, but women have rights as well, and so their voice needs to be heard. That's what I'll say. Okay. Okay. Well, I just went past the hour. Yeah, so there weren't that many questions. I see there were a lot of kind comments, and I feel like it would be a bit too self-serving for me to go on and read them too much. But you know, thank you all for joining in. You know, I know there are still, like, I guess what looks to be tech issues that happen. I think it's possibly just the nature of the streaming and the basic software that I have. It's frustrating to me, but I hope you can at least hear me. And thanks for your continued support and showing up. You know, this is a completely ad-free show, and so your support is really important. And I'm showing my my link tree here. My username there is just linktree/AndyNGO. I have a locals, I have a Patreon. So there you can see all the links and ways to donate. You can even give on PayPal and Cash App and Venmo if you want. My username there is @MrAndyNGO. You know, I think with a lot of these content creators, we don't feel comfortable with this part of asking for support, but it has to happen. The way I have it set up, I don't do ads because I don't want the experience of the live stream to be interrupted with me talking about products. I understand why people have to do it. They have bills to pay. This work takes a lot of time to prepare. It's work. But I choose to just let people know that I have locals and Patreon, and that if you can pledge some monthly support, it means a lot to me. So thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you so much, Mia Cathell, for giving her time in that really great interview. And I look forward to joining you all next week. Again, Thursdays, 7 p.m. weekly notice. Thank you.